The cold bit through the soles of Renn Vasquez's boots. He pressed his palm flat against the sensor panel. He waited for the long-range scanner to resolve a ghost. The Veil Nebula surrounded them. It was a graveyard of gas and debris. The gas and debris glowed faintly purple beyond the viewport. Nothing should have been here. Something flickered on the display. "Contact," Renn said. His voice was rough from recycled air. "Bearing 27 Mark IV, range 800 clicks." Lyra Henning stepped closer. Her gray-streaked hair caught the red emergency light. She studied the image without speaking. The object was angular. It had sharp lines and spires. The spires caught the nebula's glow. The object did not match any Skarath design she had shown them. It did not match anything in the fleet's database. "Station?" Lyra asked. "Too small, too thin." Renn zoomed the image. The structure had a central core. Arms extended outward from the core. Each arm ended in a crystalline node. "It looks like a flower, a dead one." Bex Tolliver appeared from the corridor. She wiped grease from her hands onto her trousers. She hummed an old melody under her breath. Renn almost recognized the melody from a childhood memory. That memory had faded to ash. "What did I miss?" "Something pretty," Renn said, "and wrong." Lyra did not hesitate. "Get us alongside, prep the docking collar." The approach took 20 minutes. The station grew against the viewport. Renn felt his chest tighten. The crystal spires caught the light wrong. They did not reflect. They absorbed. Each spire drank the purple glow. It held the glow trapped, like a fly in amber. He tapped his thumb against his thigh. Once, twice, 3 times. The docking collar engaged with a shudder. Ancient machinery cycled. Renn heard the hiss of pressure equalizing through the hull. The airlock light shifted from red to amber to green. "I go first," Lyra said. It was not a suggestion. Renn followed her into the airlock. Bex came behind him. She clutched a handheld scanner. She clicked it on with a nervous habit. The inner door opened. They stepped into the station. The silence was complete. Dust coated every surface. The dust was thick and gray. It had been undisturbed for decades or centuries. Renn's footsteps left clear prints in it. The walls were smooth, seamless metal. The metal felt warm to the touch, as if the station still held a pulse. "No power signature," Bex said. Her voice was too loud. "No heat, no life support cycling. This place should be dead." "It feels alive," Renn said. Lyra shot him a look. "Keep your head. We sweep each room, mark the layout, report anything useful. Nothing gets touched without a scan." They moved through the station in silence. Each chamber revealed the same scene. Empty consoles, dust, the faint smell of old insulation and vacuum. The smell was sweet and clean, like the air after a lightning storm. Renn did not know how he knew that smell. He had never seen a storm. Bex stopped at a doorway wider than the others. Her scanner let out a low chirp. "Got something." The central chamber was vast. A crystalline lattice hung from the ceiling. Thin cables suspended the lattice. The cables seemed too fragile to hold its weight. The lattice pulsed with a faint blue light. The pulse was slow and rhythmic, like a heartbeat. The lattice was the size of a small room. It was made of facets. The facets caught the light. They scattered the light in patterns Renn could not follow. He stepped forward without thinking. "Renn," Lyra's voice was sharp. "Stop." He did not stop. The lattice hummed. He felt the hum in his chest. A vibration resonated through his ribs. It settled in his spine. He reached out. He pressed his palm against the nearest facet. The hum changed pitch. Data bloomed in the air before him. A holographic display flickered into existence. The text was angular and dense. He did not recognize a single character. The letters twisted. They folded into themselves. They formed shapes that moved as he watched. "Bex," Renn said, "tell me you see this." Bex was already running her scanner across the display. Her humming stopped. "It is a log or a manual. The script is unknown. I do not know this alphabet. It is not Skarath. It is not any of the trade languages." "What is it?" "I think it is propulsion schematics." Bex's voice was quiet, almost reverent. "The lattice generates a field. The field manipulates something called a void pocket. It uses principles I have never seen. This station is not a station. Renn, this is a ship." Lyra stepped closer, her eyes fixed on the display. "A ship that can fly." "A ship that can move faster than light," Bex said. "It does not need engines. It bends the space around itself. It rides the fold." Renn kept his hand on the lattice. The hum grew stronger. He felt a jolt of recognition. The jolt had no source. This tech did not feel alien. The Skarath devices they scavenged always felt foreign. They felt cold. They were built for hands that were not his. This lattice hummed in a frequency that matched his bones. It resonated with something inside him. For a second, the fear and the hunger and the endless running fell away. He was not a scavenger in a dead station on the edge of a dying nebula. He was standing in a place built by hands that understood him. He was home. His fingers pressed deeper into the facet. The lattice flared bright white. A pulse of energy swept outward from the core. The pulse was visible on the holographic display. It was a shockwave in orange and gold. Renn felt it pass through him. It was warm and clean. The station groaned. "What did you do?" Lyra's voice cracked. "I don't know," Renn said. "I just touched it." Bex stared at her scanner. The lattice just sent out a signal, not a broadcast, a beacon. It pinged every ship in range. "Every ship?" Lyra asked. "Every ship in the nebula." Lyra moved to the viewport. Her face went pale. "Renn, come here now." He pulled his hand away from the lattice. The hum faded to a whisper. The blue light dimmed. He walked to the viewport. He looked outside. Space was warping. The starfield bent. It folded. It snapped back into place. A Skarath warship decloaked. Its hull was silver and angular. It bristled with weapon emplacements. The weapons gleamed in the nebula's glow. The warship was close, too close. The comm system crackled to life. A voice rolled through the station. The voice was reptilian and formal. It carried the weight of law and long memory. "Human vessel, you have trespassed on sacred heritage. Surrender the station or be destroyed." Renn did not move. He stared at the warship. He stared at the guns. The guns could punch through their hull in seconds. He thought of the 3 escape pods. The pods could carry maybe 6 people to safety. The lattice hummed behind him. He turned to look at it. The crystal heart of a ship that should not have been here. A ship that should not have worked. A ship that felt like a memory he had never made. He had no idea what he had just touched. He had no idea what he had just woken. The warm, damp air clung to Korath's scales. He stood before the holographic map of the nebula. The gas clouds swirled in false color. They marked gravity wells and radiation spikes with patient precision. His claws tapped a slow rhythm against the console. That was the only sound on the quiet bridge. The door slid open with a hiss of hydraulics. Vresh stormed through. His darker scales caught the dim light. The ridge of spines along his neck was fully raised. His tail slammed against the deck once, twice. "The order has been issued," Vresh said. "Primary bombardment in 20 minutes. Korath did not turn from the map. "On what authority?" "Mine." Vresh stepped closer. His breath was sharp and hot. "That station is Skarath. It belonged to the first of our kind who broke atmosphere. It is heritage. It is ours by claim and by blood. The vermin inside it are thieves." Korath raised one hand. The gesture was slow and deliberate. It was a counterweight to the violence building in his clanmate's frame. "A blockade will hold them. We will parley. Honor requires a chance for them to leave peacefully." "Honor?" Vresh's jaw snapped shut. "They are scavengers. They are not a clan. They have no claim, no flag, no homeworld. Why do you waste breath on courtesy?" "Because we are Skarath," Korath said. His voice dropped to a whisper. The whisper carried more authority than a shout. "We do not exterminate what we have not first addressed. Open a channel." The bridge crew moved in silence. A screen flickered to life. The face of a human appeared. The image was grainy. It was washed in the pale blue light of the station's interior. Renn Vasquez stood with his shoulders squared. His cheeks were hollow. His eyes were dark-rimmed. A scar cut through his left eyebrow. The scar looked like a seam in worn leather. He did not blink. "This is the human vessel," Korath said. "I am Korath. I am a diplomat of the Skarath Syndicate. You occupy a structure. That structure belongs to our people. It is a relic of our first age of travel. We claim it by ancestral right." Renn's jaw tightened. "We found it. Salvage rights are universal. No one had a flag on it. We docked." "You misunderstand the situation," Korath said. He kept his tone even. "This is not a negotiation of trade law. This is a matter of heritage. I offer you and your crew safe passage beyond the nebula. You leave the structure intact. No harm will come to you." A long pause. Renn's thumb tapped against his thigh. Once, twice, 3 times. The gesture was small and barely visible. Korath had watched humans for 3 cycles. He recognized the signs of internal calculation. "We have nowhere to go," Renn said. His voice was flat. It was stripped of emotion. "The nebula is the only place with enough resources to sustain our fleet. It gives us cover from the factions. Those factions would finish what the destruction of Earth started. We leave, we die." Vresh moved forward. His claws scraped against the console's edge. "Then you die here instead." Renn's eyes shifted to Vresh. They did not widen. They did not harden. They simply held, like a wall that had already taken every impact, a wall still standing through nothing but memory. Korath felt the first crack in his certainty. The human should have shown fear. He should have exhibited signs of risk calculation, the rapid flick of the eyes, the tremor in the voice, the attempt to find an exit. Every species in the galaxy displayed those signals when threatened. Even the most stubborn xenotraders showed hesitation. This human showed nothing. "You have no leverage," Vresh hissed. "Your ship is small, your weapons are salvage, you are a single thread in a dead system, I will cut you." "Vresh," Korath said, his voice was sharp, "stand down." "I will not." "You will." Korath turned to face his clanmate fully. The two scales of the syndicate met, emerald green against obsidian black. "I hold senior rank on this vessel. The law of the syndicate binds both of us. You will stand down. I will confine you to your quarters. I will conduct the parley alone." Vresh's tail trembled. The spines along his neck flattened. He stepped back. Korath returned his gaze to the screen. "Human, you claim salvage rights. You have no fleet presence to enforce them. I offer you life. You can take your vessel and your people. You can leave this sector. No one will pursue you across the border. I give you my word as a diplomat of the Skarath." Renn's thumb stopped tapping. He looked down at something off-screen. He looked back up. "We have already activated the station's drive." The silence on the bridge was absolute. Korath heard only the hum of the engines through the deck. He heard the faint click of cooling vents. Renn continued. His voice was the same flat tone. "The lattice is warm. It is cycling. Fire on this station. The discharge will overload the drive core. The explosion will collapse the nearest void pocket. The resulting tear will take this ship with it. Your hull is strong. It is not strong enough." Korath's blood chilled. He had studied the station's power readings since the humans boarded. The energy signature had shifted. He had assumed it was a secondary life support system activating. He had been wrong. "You are bluffing," Vresh said. His voice had lost its edge. "No one activates a drive they do not intend to use. You would not detonate your own escape." Renn's lips pressed together. "We are human. There are fewer than 400,000 of us left in the galaxy. Every single one of us has already lost our home. We lost our planet. We lost our entire history. You cannot threaten us with anything we have not already survived. We are not afraid of dying. We are afraid of dying for nothing." Korath stared at the human's eyes, those dark, tired, hollow eyes. There was no fear there. There was no calculation. There was only a flat, resolved calm. It was the look of a creature that had already accepted the worst outcome. The creature was simply waiting to see if the universe could offer something else. The Skarath measured risk across centuries. A battle was not a single moment. It was a ripple that extended through generations. Every decision was weighed against the long future, against the clan's survival, against the honor of ancestors not yet born. Humans did not have centuries. They had decades. Some of them had only hours. They spent those hours like currency with no value. "You are already dead," Korath said. He did not know if he said it to the human or to himself. "We have been dead for a long time," Renn replied. "We just haven't stopped moving." The channel went dark. Korath stood motionless. The holographic map of the nebula cast blue light across his scales. He could feel the warmth of the air. He felt the hum of the drive. He felt the weight of a decision. The decision had no good answer. Vresh's tail was still. "They are not bluffing," Vresh said. It was not a question. "No," Korath said, "they are not." The humans had nothing left. That was not a weakness. It was a weapon. For the first time in his long life, Korath realized something. His species had no answer for an enemy that did not care if it died. The void sail on the station hummed. Korath counted the seconds. The decision would be made for him. The holographic display flickered. It cast jagged shadows across the control room walls. Renn Vasquez hunched over the floating data stream. His thumb tapped a frantic rhythm against his thigh. The lattice behind him pulsed in steady counterpoint. The pulse was a heartbeat. It did not belong to any living thing. Bex Tolliver worked beside him. Her fingers traced patterns in the air. She spun through translation algorithms. She hummed an old folk song from some pre-fall colony. The tune was unfamiliar to Renn. The ritual was not. She always hummed when she was close to a breakthrough. Lyra stood at the comm station. Her gray-streaked hair caught the emergency light. Her arms were crossed. She watched the feed from the Skarath ship. Her eyes had tracked too many debris fields. They had tracked too many salvage runs. The margin between profit and death was measured in seconds. "How long?" Lyra asked. Bex did not look up. "The grammar is old. I mean really old, Indo-European roots. The syntax is a direct descendant of something like Old High German. The divergence point is wrong." Renn frowned. "Wrong how?" "The split should have happened on Earth. About 3,000 years ago, the evolutionary markers in the language tree show a separate branch. The split happened in space." Bex paused. She stopped humming. "This language developed independently from any human tongue we know. It shares a common ancestor." The implication sat in the room, like a held breath. Renn turned back to the display. The data resolved as Bex cracked the final encoding layer. The station's logs unfolded in clean, precise script. The shapes felt familiar. The feeling prickled the back of his neck. The builders called themselves the Heirs. Renn read the entry aloud. The Heirs settled this region after the collapse of their home system. They lived short lives, intense lives. They built the void sail as a means of transit between the remaining pockets of habitable space. He scrolled further. The records showed biological schematics, cellular structures, genetic code. The hair on Renn's arm stood up. "This can't be right," Bex whispered. "What?" Lyra stepped closer. Renn pulled up the comparative analysis. The Heir genome matched human baseline. The match was 99.97% fidelity. The anatomical renderings showed a bipedal form, 2 arms, 2 legs, a skull with the same orbital ridge, the same jaw structure, the same spinal column. He called up an image from the personnel logs. A Heir pilot. The face on the screen could have been his grandfather. High cheekbones, sunken eyes, a lean jaw set with stubbornness. The stubbornness of someone who had stopped caring about comfort a long time ago. The pilot's eyes held the same look. Renn saw it in the mirror every morning, the willingness to die for the chance to live. "What are you feeling?" Bex asked softly. Renn did not answer. He touched the image. The holographic surface rippled under his fingertips. The pilot stared back at him across an impossible gap of time. The gaze was steady, familiar. It was the look of someone who had nothing left to lose. That someone had decided that was enough. Lyra's voice cut through the silence. "What does this mean for us?" Renn pressed deeper into the logs. He found the void sails operating manual. The text was clinical, precise. It described the device with the dispassion of an engineer. That engineer had written the same warning 100 times before. He read the key passage aloud. His voice felt dry. "Only those who accept a 50% mortality risk may pilot. The drive core aligns with the pilot's neural pattern. The activation field merges the pilot's consciousness into the core. If the alignment fails, the pilot dies. Long-lived species cannot operate the device. Their caution denies them the void." 50%. Half the pilots did not survive their first jump. Renn remembered the cold bite of the nebula through his boots. The endless drift from port to port. Never staying long enough to call anywhere home. He remembered the day Earth fell. The broadcasts that went dark one by one. The silence that followed. He looked at the air pilot again. The face on the screen did not flinch. It had already accepted the risk. "This is why the Skarath could not activate it," Bex said. Her voice was low, reverent. "They live too long, they calculate every percentage. They would never accept those odds." "But we would," Lyra said. It was not a question. Renn straightened. The exhaustion in his bones faded into something else, something older. He looked at the station around them. The seamless walls, the warm floors, the crystalline lattice that hummed with the echo of a dead star's energy. The Heirs built this for their descendants. They built it for people who shared their biology, their lifespan, their willingness to gamble everything on one throw of the dice. The Heirs were human, Renn said. An ancient diaspora colony, they evolved the same mortality acceptance. It was the only way to survive. They knew we would find this place one day. Lyra's jaw tightened. "You are sure?" Bex nodded. "The genetics do not lie. These are our people." Renn turned to face them. The holographic light cast shifting shadows across his face. His scar caught the glow. A pale line through his left eyebrow. The scar marked every fight he had ever lost and walked away from. He said, "We are not trespassers. This belongs to our ancestors. We are the heirs." The words hung in the air. Lyra stared at him. Bex wiped a hand across her face. She left a streak of grease on her cheek. The lattice pulsed behind them, steady, patient, waiting for someone brave enough to use it. The comm crackled. Vresh's voice snarled through the speakers. The voice was harsh and rapid. Each word hit like a hammer on glass. "Final warning. Korath's diplomacy is over. I am firing in 30 seconds. Renn looked at Bex. She shook her head. Her eyes were wide. "The lattice cannot be used again without a pilot," she said. "The neural buffer is depleted. Someone has to bond with the core. They have to make the jump. It is the only way to cycle it." 30 seconds. Lyra's hand moved toward the weapon at her hip. "We can try to negotiate." Renn knew that would not work. Vresh did not want a deal. He wanted the station. He wanted the humans gone. He wanted to prove that his clan's claim meant more than the lives of a few desperate refugees. Renn stood. "I will pilot it." Bex opened her mouth, closed it. She looked at him the same way she had looked at the air pilot's face, with the recognition of someone who understood exactly what he was offering. Lyra stepped forward. "Vasquez, that is a 50% death sentence." "I know. You have never flown anything like this thing. You do not know how it works. You do not know if it works." "I know." Renn turned to face the lattice. The crystalline structure shimmered in the dim light. It hummed at a frequency that vibrated through his sternum, through his teeth, through the marrow of his bones. The air pilot stared at him from the holographic display. The face did not blink. The eyes did not waver. 10 seconds. Renn pressed his palm to the lattice. The surface was warm. It pulsed against his skin like a second heartbeat. He said, "I am going to fly this thing into a void pocket. I am going to collapse half a star system. I am going to come out the other side." He did not know if he believed it. He said it anyway. That was what the heirs did. That was what humans did. They looked at certain death. They called it a fair trade. The comm crackled again. Vresh's voice rose to a roar. 5 seconds. Renn closed his eyes. The lattice hummed louder. The warmth spread up his arm, into his chest, into the place where hope used to live. He felt the station shudder. Then the light took him. The countdown timer beeped. The sound was like a small animal trapped inside the console. Korath did not look at it. He kept his amber eyes fixed on the monitor. The human ship sat against the station's dark hull. The ship was the size of a cargo tender. The crew should have been dead 3 hours ago. Vresh stood at the fire control station. His hand hovered over the trigger panel. The spines on his neck stood erect. They formed a dark ridge against the bridge's dim lighting. He had not moved in 90 seconds. Korath heard the heat of his anger. The heat radiated across the bridge like a second sun. The other Skarath crew members kept their heads low. No one wanted to meet Vresh's gaze. The comm unit crackled. A data burst from the station. Korath moved before he thought. He crossed to the secondary console. His claws tapped across the interface. The station's logs were not encrypted. The builders had left them open, like a door deliberately unlatched. He read the first file, then the second, then the third. His breath stopped. The station was older than Skarath civilization, older than the Council, older than the records of any species he had ever encountered. The builders called themselves the heirs. Their genome mapped to the same root stock as the humans on that ship. They had left a warning in the core files. He read it twice. Long-lived species do not survive the void sail. The mortality rate exceeds 50% for any pilot with a lifespan greater than 3 standard decades. The drive requires a pilot who accepts death as a cost, not as a risk. Korath looked up at the monitor. The humans on that ship, their short lives, their frantic urgency. They did not calculate percentages. They did not have time to. Vresh's tail slammed against the deck. The crack was like a pistol shot. "What have you found?" Korath turned. "The station belongs to no known race. The heirs were not council members. The Skarath have no claim here." Vresh's jaw clenched. His scales darkened along his throat. "Heritage is heritage. The Syndicate discovered this nebula first. Our ancestors mapped these currents. Our clan holds the rights." "Discovery does not equal ownership." Korath kept his voice flat. "The builders were not Skarath." The countdown timer reached 15 seconds. Vresh's claw tightened over the trigger panel. The weapons hummed. A deep thrum vibrated through the deck plates. The bridge crew tensed. One of them, a young navigator, let out a low hiss of distress. Korath felt the weight of his own caution. He had carried it his entire life. Every decision measured. Every outcome calculated. Every risk reduced to a fraction of a percentage. That was the Skarath way. That was the honorable way. That was the way that had kept his species alive for 12,000 years. But the humans were not alive because of caution. They were alive because of something else. The timer reached 10 seconds. Vresh's hand trembled, his lips peeled back, he revealed rows of needle teeth. The Syndicate will not bend to vermin. Skarath stepped between Vresh and the console. He placed his body directly in front of the trigger panel. He did not raise his claws, he did not make a threat. He invoked emergency protocol, Section 7 of the Skarath Compact. The words came out clean and calm. I am exercising right of challenge. The grounds are unlawful engagement. The weapons will stand down until the Council reviews the claim. The bridge went silent. The crew hesitated. They looked at Vresh. They looked at Skarath. The timer hit 8 seconds. Vresh's eyes burned. He knew the law. He knew that Skarath's challenge would freeze the weapons. If he fired now, he would be executed. The Syndicate would not protect him. The compact was older than any clan. The timer hit 5 seconds. Vresh's claw lifted from the panel. He stepped back. His tail lashed once, twice. Then it went still. You will regret this. Skarath did not answer. He turned to the monitor. The station was glowing from within. A light started in the core. It bled outward through the hull. The light was beautiful, a soft gold, like the first light of a star. The void sail was activating. He could see the crystalline lattice through the station's transparent sections. It pulsed with a rhythm that hurt his eyes. The countdown reached 0. The comm channel opened. Renn's voice came through. It was flat and exhausted. Tell your council, this void is ours. We earned it. The station vanished. Not a jump, not a fade. The station was simply gone. The space where it had been was empty. No debris, no energy signature, no trace that anything had ever existed there. The nebula's gas drifted through the spot, as if nothing had ever been there at all. Vresh roared. The sound was pure rage. It filled the bridge and echoed off the bulkheads. He slammed his fist against the command console. The screen cracked. The crew scattered. Skarath watched the empty space. He smiled. The smile was thin and reptilian. It pulled at the corners of his mouth. He had never seen anything like that. A ship and a station. Both of them gone. A technology the Skarath could not replicate. A species that had gambled everything on a single roll and won. He wanted to see it again. He turned away from the monitor. The crew was watching him. They had seen the smile. They did not understand it. Neither did Vresh. Vresh stood frozen. His fist was still embedded in the cracked console. Skarath walked to his station. He opened a channel to the council. His voice was steady. The Skarath Syndicate has a new neighbor. I recommend we treat them with the respect their species has earned. Vresh's voice came from behind him. It was a low growl. Respect for vermin. Skarath did not turn around. He kept his eyes on the empty space on the monitor. The nebula swirled where the station had been. The humans were already gone. They were already somewhere else. They were already acting. He wondered where they would go next. He wondered what they would find. He wondered if the council would be fast enough to catch up. He doubted it. The Skarath were fast. The humans were faster. Skarath had just realized something. He would carry that realization for the rest of his life. The humans were not desperate refugees. They were the heirs to something older than the council. They had just proved that they knew exactly what they were doing. The symbiont armor lay across the harness seat. It looked like a living thing waiting to be fed. Renn Vasquez touched it with one finger. The surface gave under his pressure. It was warm and slightly damp. It pulsed once. A greeting, a question. His throat was dry. He swallowed anyway. The harness wrapped around his torso in cold metal bands. The symbiont armor waited. There was no manual for this part. The station's instructions had ended with the words "bond with the pilot." Nothing about how that felt. Nothing about whether it hurt. Bex's voice came through the cabin speaker. Renn, you don't have to do this yourself. Yes, I do. The probability display. I saw it. He unsealed his flight suit. The armor trembled as he pressed his bare chest against its surface. The warmth became heat. The heat became something else. Cold fire spread across his skin, down his arms, up his neck. The armor crawled, it burrowed, it wrapped around his ribs like a second skeleton. He did not scream. He did not have enough air to scream. The bond completed, the pain stopped. He felt the station's structure as if it were his own body. The lattice hummed through his spine. The void sail's crystal nodes glowed in his peripheral vision. He knew their temperature, their charge level, their fatigue. Bex's voice again. Your vitals spiked and normalized. Are you with me? I'm here. A display flickered in front of his face, a single number. 48.7% survival probability. He accepted the terms. The lattice changed. The hum became a vibration. The vibration became a sound that was not a sound. It resonated in his teeth and his bones and the spaces between his thoughts. He initiated the sequence. Space-time folded around the station. He felt himself stretch. His consciousness spread through the crystal lattice, through the walls, through the void sail's ancient mechanisms. He was the hull. He was the air. He was the light pulsing through the navigation systems. He was also still himself, small, terrified, strapped to a chair in a station built by people who should not have existed. The vision came without warning. The pilot seat was the same. The harness was identical. The body in the harness was not his own. An old man with gray hair and calm eyes sat where Renn sat. His face was weathered. His hands rested on the armrests. They had the patience of someone who had done this before. Renn tried to speak. No sound came. The old man looked at him, not through him, at him. His eyes held recognition. They held welcome. "This is what we built for you." The old man's voice was dry and warm. It had an accent Renn could not place, an accent from a world that no longer existed. "The ones who do not fear the end." The old man raised a hand. The gesture was slow and deliberate, his palm pressed against the air. Renn felt pressure on his own shoulder, a hand, real, warm, flesh and bone, the weight of a living touch. Renn looked at the old man's face, the gray hair, the calm eyes, the slight smile that creased the corners of his mouth. It was his father's smile. It was his own smile, 20 years from now, if he lived that long. "You are not the last of us." The old man's voice cracked, just slightly, the first time emotion bled through. "You are the next." The vision shattered. Renn was back in the pilot seat, the cold metal harness, the cracked symbiont armor, biofluid bled down his chest, the smell of burnt insulation, his own sweat. The station moved. Not through space, through the spaces between spaces, through the wounds in reality that the Skarath avoided, through the void pockets that killed the cautious. His heart stopped. The void pockets swallowed them whole. There was no light, no sound, no up or down. There was only the stretching, the compression, the sense of being pulled through a needle's eye made of nothing. His heart restarted. It hammered against his ribs like a trapped animal. The jump lasted 1 subjective minute. When it ended, Renn did not open his eyes immediately. He did not trust the darkness behind his lids to be the same darkness in front of them. He waited for the pain to tell him he was still alive. The pain arrived. His chest burned, his skull ached. The symbiont armor was cracked open in 3 places. A fluid that looked like diluted blood dripped onto the floor. The smell of ozone had joined the burnt insulation. His own sweat had soaked through his flight suit. He opened his eyes. Unfamiliar stars filled the viewport. A nebula the color of bruised copper stretched across the glass. The station had arrived somewhere new. Bex's voice crackled through the speaker. "We made it." Renn tried to answer. His mouth moved. His throat produced a sound that was not a word. "You there?" Bex's tone shifted. It became sharper. "Renn, respond." He forced air into his lungs. "Here." "You sound terrible." "Feel worse." The symbiont armor flashed a warning in his peripheral vision. Red glyphs he had not seen before. He did not know their meaning. The armor pulsed once, twice. A third time, the pulse was weaker. The warning stayed red. Lyra's voice cut through on a separate channel. "Vitals are dropping. Renn, your neural link is showing degradation. Can you confirm?" He looked down at the armor. The cracks were spreading. The biofluid was slowing. The warmth was fading. "Confirmed." "We need help." Lyra's voice was tight, controlled, the voice of a captain who had run out of options. "We need a doctor. We need allies." The station's comm crackled, an automated signal, distant, weak. "A Skarath distress frequency." Renn blinked. The stars outside the viewport swam. Someone was watching. Someone had seen the station arrive. The red glyphs pulsed again. His vision narrowed. He heard Bex shouting his name. He heard Lyra ordering a medbay prep. He heard the Skarath distress signal repeating on a loop. Then he heard nothing at all. The command chair felt wrong now. Korath sat in it the way a Skarath wore formal robes for a ceremony he did not believe in. The leather was cool under his claws. The bridge hummed around him. The engines cycled at standby. The nebula's empty glow filled every screen. Vresh was gone. Korath had dismissed him to the lower decks. He ordered Vresh to cool his blood or face formal censure. The spines on Vresh's neck had been flat. They were pressed tight in submission. His eyes had promised a reckoning. Korath did not care. He scrolled through the air data for the 7th time. The translation algorithms had refined themselves over the past 2 hours. They filled gaps in the initial capture. What emerged was not a technical manual. It was a message. A long message written for someone the heirs would never meet. They had known they were dying. Korath read the passage again. His translator rendered the ancient script into Skarath standard. "We go to the dark. The void takes us. We have seeded the paths. Our children of the short flame will find them." Short flame, that was the phrase the heirs used for humans, for themselves before they vanished. They had called themselves the Long Ember. Their descendants left behind on Earth were the short flame, fast-burning, intense, expendable. The void sail was not just a drive. Korath tapped the console. He brought up the energy signature analysis. The crystalline lattice did not simply move a ship. It resonated with the pilot's nervous system. It required a living mind to guide it through the void pockets. The stress of that resonance killed most long-lived species within seconds. The heirs had designed it that way on purpose. They built a key. The key could only turn in the hands of a species that burned hot and fast, a species willing to die for a chance to move forward. Korath let out a slow hiss. His throat sac vibrated. The humans were not clever survivors who had stumbled onto abandoned technology. They were heirs, literal heirs. The station had been waiting for them. The void sail had been built for them. The bridge comm crackled. The sensor operator swiveled toward him. The operator was a young Skarath with pale green scales and a nervous, flicking tongue. "Diplomat Korath, the Council is hailing, priority channel." Korath straightened. He smoothed the front of his tunic. It was a habit from 100 negotiations. Put them through. The main screen flickered. 9 faces appeared in a grid. Each face was a senior voice in the Skarath Syndicate Council. Their scales ranged from deep bronze to an oily black. Their expressions were uniformly cold. Council leader Thrasek spoke first. His voice rolled like distant thunder. "Korath, you have cost us a valuable resource. The nebula held rare elements. The station itself was a salvage prize. You allowed it to vanish." "I allowed nothing," Korath said. "The station was never ours. The Syndicate claimed it by ancestral right. The ancestors who built it were not Skarath. They were human." Thrasak's head tilted. His tongue flicked once. It was a sign of irritation. "A technicality. No, it is the entire foundation of our claim. We cannot assert heritage over something our species did not create. The heirs were a human colony. They seeded that station with technology tailored to human biology. It was never ours to take." The council exchanged glances. One of them leaned forward. She was a female with mottled amber scales. "You are defending the humans." "I am defending the truth," Korath said. "I am defending our honor. If we claim territory based on false heritage, we become no different than the Stonecall. We become looters." Thrasak's eyes narrowed. The Stonecall were savages. Every Skarath child learned that. Comparing the Syndicate to them was a grave insult. "Careful, Korath. I am being precise. The humans activated the void sail. They piloted the station through a void pocket. They survived. That technology would have killed any Skarath who tried to use it. The station was a test. The humans passed it." The council went silent. Korath let the weight of his words settle. He remembered the human's face. Renn Vasquez, the scavenger with the hollow cheeks and the steady hands. He had looked at Korath not with fear. He had looked with the flat certainty of someone who had already accepted death. That was the short flame. That was what the heirs had counted on. Thrasek spoke again. His voice was quieter now. "What do you propose?" Korath opened his mouth to answer. Before he could speak, a new tone cut through the bridge. The sensor operator flinched. His claws clacked against the console. "Diplomat Korath, a transmission weak. It is a distress beacon." "From where?" The operator's tongue flicked rapidly. His voice rose an octave. "It is the station. They emerged from the void pocket. They are adrift. Life signs present but faint." The council heard. Their faces shifted. Uncertainty replaced anger. Korath stood. He did not ask permission. He did not request debate. He turned to the helm officer. The officer was a veteran with scarred arms and a missing eye. "Plot a course to that beacon. Engines to full readiness." The officer hesitated. Diplomat Korath, the council has not. Plot the course. The officer moved. The engines hummed louder. The pitch was deeper. It vibrated through Korath's chest. Thrasak's voice crackled from the screen. Korath, you cannot act unilaterally. The Syndicate has protocols. Korath looked at the council leader. He thought of the air message. He thought of the human pilot. The short flame burning through a void pocket. A pocket that would have killed a Skarath. He thought of honor. The protocols can wait, Korath said. There is a rescue to perform. He cut the channel. The bridge fell quiet. Only the engine thrum remained. The sensor operator stared at him with wide amber eyes. The helm officer worked without looking up. No one spoke. Korath sat back in the command chair. He felt the cool leather under his claws. He felt the ship turn. It responded to his order. It curved toward a point in empty space. A dead star's children floated there. They were waiting. The lower decks shuddered with a muffled roar. Vresh was still furious. He was still pounding against something. Korath ignored it. He watched the stars shift on the main screen. The Void sail station was out there, drifting, damaged. It carried a human who had gambled everything on one jump. That human had won. Korath's fingers brushed the console. He traced the outline of the air script. The symbols had waited 1,000,000 years for someone to read them. Short flame, he whispered. You earned more than you know. The honors scale dropped out of warp near the drifting station. The station hung in the void. It was scarred and dark. One of its crystalline nodes was cracked. The crack spilled faint light. The hull was scorched. The symbiont armor had peeled away in strips. Raw metal was exposed. Korath opened a comm channel. The screen flickered. A face appeared. Lyra Hennings. Her gray-streaked hair was loose. Dark circles hollowed her eyes. Her gaze was iron. Why are you here? She asked. Korath met her stare. He did not look away. Because you earned the right to be helped. Behind him, the crew prepared a shuttle. The docking clamps engaged. The hatch cycled open. Lyra did not answer. She did not need to. Korath saw her hand move. She reached for something off-screen. A weapon, perhaps, a medical kit. He did not know. He saw her eyes shift. The iron softened, just a fraction. The humans did not know if this was a trap. Neither did the Skarath. The shuttle was already moving. The cold of the deck seeped through Renn's bare feet. He felt every degree of it. The cold was a sharp contrast to the heat that had crawled under his skin during the bond. The symbiont armor sat in a sealed crate 3 meters away. It was a dead weight of pulsing tissue and memory. His chest was raw. Blistered skin stretched over his ribs. The skin was pink and weeping where the living metal had torn free. Lyra stood by the door. Her hand rested on her sidearm. She did not speak. Bex worked at the Void sail console. Her back was to everyone. She hummed something low and tuneless, an old Earth melody. Renn did not recognize it. The door opened. Korath entered first. His green scales caught the dim amber light of the chamber. The scales were iridescent and calm. He held his hands clasped behind his back. His claws were folded flat. 2 Skarath medics followed him. Their equipment cases hissed as they pressurized in the human atmosphere. Lyra tensed. Her fingers curled around the grip of her weapon. Renn raised a hand, a small motion, a stop. She did not draw. Korath stopped 3 paces from the makeshift bed. His amber eyes swept over Renn's exposed skin. The blisters, the ragged edges where the armor had anchored into muscle. He made a sound low in his throat, not a hiss, not a word. The sound was something between recognition and concern. The medics moved forward. The first one knelt beside Renn. The medic opened a case. A device emerged. The device was cylindrical and silver. It tipped with a pad that glowed pale blue. The smell hit Renn immediately. It was sharp and herbal, like crushed cypress with something chemical beneath it. The medic pressed the pad against Renn's chest. Cold, then heat, then a deep vibrating thrum. The thrum pushed through the blistered tissue. Renn gasped. The second medic placed a hand on his shoulder. The hand was firm and steady, a gesture that crossed species without translation. The pain faded. The skin began to knit. Korath watched in silence. Lyra did not lower her weapon. Bex turned from the console. She wiped grease from her fingers onto her thigh. She studied the medics with narrowed eyes. Her humming stopped. Renn looked up at Korath. The Skarath diplomat met his gaze. Your station, Korath said. Your heritage, your legacy. Renn did not answer. Korath's tail twitched once, a controlled motion, deliberate. I came to offer an alliance. Lyra's hand tightened on the sidearm. Beck straightened. Her posture shifted from curiosity to readiness. Renn held Korath's gaze. Why? The word hung in the air. Simple, direct. It carried the weight of every human death since Earth fell, every colony burned, every refugee fleet scattered across the dark. Korath tilted his head. His scales caught the light again. They shifted from green to gold at the edges. Your species does not calculate survival, he said. You calculate impact. That is something we need. Renn blinked. The medics withdrew the regenerator. The pad went dark. The sharp herbal smell lingered. Lyra lowered her weapon, not all the way. The barrel dropped from center mass to the floor. Bex let out a breath she had been holding. Renn sat up slowly. His chest felt tight but whole. The blisters were gone. The skin beneath was pink and tender. It was sealed. Impact, he said. Korath nodded once. The Skarath calculate risk. We measure every percentage. We weigh outcomes across centuries. Your species has no centuries. You have decades. You spend them as if they are infinite. You gamble everything on a single move. That is not recklessness. That is a different kind of wisdom. Renn stared at him. You came into this nebula with nothing, Korath said. No fleet, no homeworld, no reinforcements. You had a dead station and a drive that kills half its pilots. You used it. We had no choice, Renn said. Exactly. The word landed flat, final, a verdict delivered without judgment. Renn felt something crack inside his chest. Not the bone, not the tissue, something older. Something that had been clenched since the first evacuation alarm on Earth. Lyra holstered her weapon. Bex turned back to the void sail console. Her fingers moved across the controls. The crystalline lattice hummed. The frequency was low. It vibrated through the deck plates. It is recharging, Bex said. It will take cycles, maybe 6, maybe more. The resonance damage was worse than I expected. Korath looked at her. Cycles, in Skarath time, that is a breath. Bex did not turn around. In human time, that is a long wait. Then we wait together. Renn tested the words in his mouth. Together. He had not said that word in years, not about anyone outside the fleet, not about any species that was not human. It tasted strange, not bitter, just unfamiliar. He stood. The floor was cold against his bare soles. He felt every inch of it grounding him, anchoring him to the station that had been waiting for him longer than he had been alive. Korath extended a hand. The gesture was human, learned, deliberate. Korath had studied the data. He knew what it meant. Renn looked at the clawed fingers, the green scales, the strength held in reserve. He took it. The grip was warm, dry, strong but not crushing. Claw tips pressed against the back of his hand. They were careful not to break skin. Renn felt the alien pulse through the contact, a heartbeat faster than his own, a body temperature several degrees higher. He saw in Korath's amber eyes something he had never expected from a non-human. Respect. Not pity, not fear, not the cold calculation of a trader assessing value. Respect. Renn held the grip for a heartbeat longer than necessary. Korath did not pull away. Then Lyra spoke, her voice cut through the chamber like a blade. We have a new signal. Everyone turned. She stood at the comm station, one hand pressed to the headset, the other pointed at the display. The screen showed a waveform, steady, regular, a pulse repeating at precise intervals. Bex crossed the room in 3 strides. She leaned over Lyra's shoulder. She studied the readout. That is not background radiation, Bex said. That is artificial. Korath moved to stand beside her. His claws clicked softly against the deck. Origin. Lyra pointed at the edge of the display. Deep void, past the pocket we came through, farther than anything we scanned before. The waveform pulsed again, steady, inviting. Renn walked to the screen. He stood between Lyra and Korath. His reflection stared back at him from the dark glass. A gaunt face, a scar through his eyebrow, eyes that had seen too much. The signal continued. Bex ran a translation program. The system churned through the structure. It parsed language patterns. It matched them against the air database. It took 3 seconds. The result appeared on the screen. Old Earth English. Simple words, a message meant for a specific audience. Renn read them aloud. His voice was quiet, unsteady. It carried. We are waiting, follow the void. The next inheritance is yours. The chamber fell silent. The hum of the void sail filled the space. The cycle indicator glowed amber. It slowly filled toward green, 6 cycles, maybe more. Korath's tail twitched, a sharp motion, quick. Renn recognized it now, excitement. The heirs left something else, Korath said. Something deeper, something they wanted found. Renn looked at the screen, at the waveform, at the words that had crossed centuries and void pockets to reach him. He thought about the old man in the vision, the gray hair, the calm eyes, the words that had shattered into light. You are the next. He thought about the symbiont armor, the pain, the cold fire, the bond that had merged him with a machine built by people who shared his genome. He thought about Earth. The evacuation had failed, billions had died, the survivors were scattered, they were waiting for a sign. This was the sign. 6 cycles, Renn said. We follow the signal. Lyra looked at him. You need to recover. I will recover in transit. Bex turned from the console. Her eyes were bright. The lattice is holding charge. We can jump again. It will be tight. Renn nodded. Korath watched him. The Skarath diplomat's head tilted. You intend to leave immediately. The signal won't wait. The Skarath fleet will follow. Renn looked at Korath, then follow. Korath smiled again, that thin reptilian smile. We will. The 2 species stood together in the dim amber light. The station hummed with ancient power. The waveform repeated on the screen, a pulse from a people long dead, a promise to the short flame. Renn pressed his hand against the console. The cold metal grounded him. He felt the weight of the decision. He felt the weight of every human who had ever looked at the stars and wondered if anyone was out there. The answer was yes. They were out there, they were waiting, they had left a path. And Renn Vasquez was going to walk it. 6 cycles later, the station was no longer dark. Its corridors hummed with the blended life support of 2 species. Skarath engineers in pressure suits worked alongside human technicians in stained coveralls. They patched the hull. They recalibrated power conduits. They shared tools and gestures that needed no translation. In the central chamber, the crystalline lattice glowed with a healthy blue light. Beck stood on a maintenance scaffold, her voice echoing slightly as she directed a Skarath engineer twice her size. The massive alien moved a diagnostic probe with surprising delicacy. Bex hummed. The tune was no longer tuneless. It had a melody now. It was a song of building. Renn stood on the bridge of the Last Hope. The Scavenger ship was docked in the station's cavernous main hangar, its scarred hull dwarfed by the ancient architecture. Lyra stood beside him, her arms crossed. The entire human flotilla, all 12 ships, hung in the void just beyond the hangar doors. A calm channel was open to all of them. We've been running for a generation. Renn's voice was low, carried across the fleet by a signal that did not waver. We called it survival. We scavenged the bones of other people's wars. We hid in the dust. That's over. He paused. He looked at the faces on the small monitor screens. Tired captains, scared families, hopeful children peeking over their parents' shoulders. The heirs, our ancestors, left us more than a ship. They left us a map. I don't know what's at the end of it. It could be a home. It could be a grave. It's the first real choice we've had since Earth burned. He met Lyra's gaze. She gave a single firm nod. The last of her doubt was gone, replaced by resolve. The station leaves at the turn of the cycle, Renn finished. Anyone who wants a new direction, follow us. Anyone who wants safety, Korath has given his word. The Skarath will grant you passage and protection. No one will judge the choice you make. We've all earned the right to be tired. He cut the feed. The bridge was silent. For a long minute, nothing happened. Then on the main viewport, a light blinked. A small freighter, the Wanderer, changed its vector. It moved to take up formation behind the station. Then another, and another. A rusty mining hauler, 2 converted gunships. Within 10 minutes, 9 of the 12 ships had moved. 3 remained, their engines cold. A fair choice. A free one. Korath appeared in the doorway of the bridge. He watched the ships align. 9, he murmured. More than I expected. Your species has a high tolerance for impossible odds. It's all we've ever known, Lyra countered, her voice without its usual edge. The Syndicate Council is not pleased with my decision, Korath stated, stepping up beside Renn. They call this an unsanctioned alliance, a waste of resources on a species with no tactical value. Renn turned from the viewport. He faced the Skarath. Are they wrong? Korath's amber eyes seemed to glow in the dim light. They are tacticians. They measure the strength of a fleet, the range of its guns. They do not have a metric for a people who can pilot a ship through a tier in reality with a 50% chance of dying. They do not understand the value of the short flame. He placed a clawed hand on the viewport, gesturing toward the deep black. But they will learn. The station's engines began to hum, a deep resonance that Renn felt in his bones. It was the same hum from the lattice, but stronger now. It was the sound of a legacy waking up. "It's time," Bex's voice came over the comm. "The lattice is stable, the path is open." Renn looked out at the stars. The new nebula was a smear of copper and gold against the void. He was still a scavenger. He was still the last of a broken line, but he was not running anymore. He was following a light left for him 1,000,000 years ago. An ember from a dead star, finding its way home.